Welcome to this explainer. I am so thrilled you're tuning in today. You know, if you've ever sat in a classroom, and I'm going to guess you have, you probably got the impression that teaching is just, well, a really smart person standing at the front of a room throwing facts at you. But today, we're going to completely reframe that idea. We're exploring this truly fascinating concept called the Hexagon of Educational Efficacy. We're going to bring some real energy to the incredibly dynamic reality of how knowledge is actually transferred. But before we start building our six-sided shape, I want you to pause for a second. Think about your own experiences. What actually makes teaching effective? Picture the absolute best learning experience you've ever had. Was it just the teacher? Was it the materials you were given? Or was there something else in the room, like an invisible energy or a structure that just made it all click? Keep that memory in mind as we uncover the answer.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the educational hexagon, then look at the human core. Move on to tangible tools and spaces, then culture and systems, and finally, wrap it up with the holistic ecosystem. We're essentially zooming out from the intimate human elements to the overarching institutional frameworks.
Section 1. The Educational Hexagon. Let's lay down the core theory we're unpacking today.
So, grounding ourselves in the terminology from our source text, the Hexagon of Educational Efficacy isn't just a static list. It is a highly dynamic interplay of 6 distinct elements. We've got the teacher, the learner, support material, facilities, environment, and the institution. Together, these 6 factors are what actually transform raw knowledge into tangible learning outcomes. And it's absolutely crucial to understand right off the bat, these aren't isolated buckets. They form this interdependent ecosystem where every single side of the hexagon completely relies on the others.
Moving into Section 2, the human core. We're starting our zoom-out approach by focusing on the most immediate, intimate part of the hexagon, the humans in the room.
At the very center of the educational experience, we have the teacher, who handles the delivery, and the learner, who handles the reception. And really, these are 2 sides of the exact same coin. The teacher's job is to inspire and adapt their strategies, right? But the learner's readiness and curiosity determine exactly how those strategies actually land. You simply cannot have effective education without both sides actively engaging in this exchange.
So let's break down the first side of our shape, the teacher. The source material outlines 4 crucial teacher factors. We have subject expertise, communication skills, motivation, and ethical commitment. You see, it's not enough to just know the subject inside and out. A teacher's specific ability to clarify complex ideas and genuinely inspire their students directly impacts the level of engagement and comprehension in that room. It's their delivery that sets the initial spark.
But as we all know, that spark has to land somewhere, right? Moving to the second side of our shape, we look at learner characteristics, things like prior knowledge, motivation, cognitive ability, and emotional readiness. This is where the reality of the classroom really sets in. The bright, positive impact of a student's active participation and curiosity massively enhances learning, but contrast that against the slower, heavier reality of how a student's anxiety or disinterest can just completely hinder progress. Ultimately, the learner determines how the teaching is received.
Section 3. Tangible tools and spaces. We're zooming out slightly from the humans to the physical room itself and the actual items they're holding.
Now, what's really interesting here is how we parse out the exact roles and impacts of the third and fourth sides of our hexagon. Support material, think textbooks, digital aids, acts to enhance clarity and reinforce the lesson. Right alongside that, instructional facilities like classrooms, labs, and ICT tools form the physical infrastructure. Their impact, well, they are what actually enable interactive learning to happen in the first place.
Let's look a little closer at that support material. Updated material enriches understanding, whereas outdated resources severely restrict comprehension. I want you to recall a time you tried to learn a fast-moving subject, maybe computer science or biology, from a textbook printed back in 1995. The references don't make sense, the context is totally gone, and the learning just stops. Relevant, modern materials are absolutely essential to keep that connection between the teacher and the learner strong.
And, the exact same logic applies to where this learning takes place. Well-equipped facilities enable experiential learning, while poor infrastructure totally limits innovation. Think about the flip side of those physical facilities. You could have a brilliant, highly motivated teacher and a class full of eager, curious students. But if they are stuck in a poorly equipped lab with broken equipment, their innovative potential is completely capped. The physical space matters immensely.
Moving on to Section 4, Culture and Systems. We're zooming out one final time to the macro level, the invisible forces and overarching structures that actually house our classroom.
Our fifth side of the shape is the learning environment. Now, this isn't about the physical desks. It's about the invisible relationships floating around in the room. We're talking about the classroom climate, peer relationships, and teacher-student rapport. These elements combine to form a really specific atmosphere.
And that atmosphere has immense power. A supportive, inclusive, and stimulating climate naturally fosters curiosity and confidence. But a hostile or rigid atmosphere, it completely suppresses creativity. Literally, imagine being a student in a room where you are terrified to give the wrong answer. That rigidity crushes the exact curiosity the teacher is trying to build, stalling the entire educational process, regardless of how good the textbooks are.
Finally, we reach the sixth and final side of our hexagon, the institution itself. This is the overarching framework. It includes the policies, the leadership, the administrative support, and the culture of the school or university. An institution that genuinely values academic freedom, invests in professional development, and prioritizes student welfare creates this sort of protective, empowering bubble. It empowers teachers to perform at their absolute best, which of course trickles all the way down to the student experience.
Section 5. The holistic ecosystem. It's time to bring it all together and connect these pieces.
So here are all 6 elements we've just built: the teacher, learner, support material, instructional facilities, learning environment, and institution. This brilliantly illustrates how no single factor operates in isolation. You can literally have the best institution in the world, but if the learner lacks emotional readiness, learning doesn't happen. You can have an expert teacher, but if the learning environment is hostile, the message gets lost. They are deeply, undeniably interconnected.
So the crucial point is, and this is straight from the source material, teaching thrives when teacher competence, learner readiness, supportive resources, conducive environments, and institutional backing align harmoniously. That is the absolute essence of this explainer. Effective education is not a solo act. It requires a holistic ecosystem, flourishing in harmony. I want to leave you with a provocative thought as we wrap up. If even one side of the hexagon breaks, can true learning still survive? Think about your own educational experiences and the fragility yet immense potential of this interconnected system. When all 6 sides are strong, the results are nothing short of transformative. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore the true architecture of learning. Keep asking questions and keep exploring.